Hey, what is going on, everybody? It's Project Fat here. I'd like to give a real quick shout out to What's Up Nation, and we've got a very special podcast here today. It's myself along with the commissioners here of the NBL. We're going to go ahead and touch on a few topics real quick. First thing we're going to touch on is Austin Davis has been graced with the cover of the NBL magazine, and so it's deemed Rise of Austin Davis. So first, we're going to turn it over to Bomber. Bomber, what do you think? Do you think it deserves to be on that cover?
Absolutely not. Austin Davis, while he's playing well and managing the games, you can't overlook this Denver Broncos defense. What's the first letter in Denver Broncos? D. They have great defense. They're only giving up 15 points per game. This is allowing Austin Davis to take some of the success that the team's having and place it on his shoulders, but that is not the case. I argue that they're only allowing 187 yards per game as a team, which is number one in the Madden Bomber League. Their pass defense only allowing 140 yards per game, which is number one in the NBL. We have to take these into consideration. If I was going to put somebody on the cover from Backley's Denver Broncos, I would put that Denver Broncos defense. So on volume 33, I think it should have been the Denver Bronco defense.
All right, Lit, man, how do you feel? Do you agree with Bomber?
No, I can't say that I do. I think that Austin Davis definitely deserves it. Look, this guy, if you go back to the preseason, the big news was what on earth were the Denver Broncos going to do without Cole Parker? It was a devastating injury. Nobody had any idea what was going to go on. They thought that it was going to be Landry Jones, but it's actually Austin Davis. If you look at the stats, Davis is completing 65% of his passes, and he's also throwing the ball all around the field. He's got Demaryius Thomas, Cody Lattimore, and Wyatt James really involved in the offense. And although it's not a high-powered offense, it's not an offense that's making a ton of mistakes. They're moving the ball, and they're putting up enough points, as Bomber said, to work with that defense. So I definitely think that given the situation that Austin Davis was thrown into, a team that had high expectations coming off a Super Bowl loss, I think he's playing very well, and he's not making mistakes that are putting his team in a bad position. They're out to a great start, and he might be able to take them back to the playoffs or even the Super Bowl, and that's what they expected out of whoever picked up that position, and Austin Davis is doing a great job of it.
Yeah, and honestly, kind of where I sit on things, I have to agree with Bomber on this subject here. I think the defense is really what's doing it for these Denver Broncos. Recently just played against them, and I think that was what the difference was in that game. Austin Davis, had a pretty decent game, but he did turn the ball over 3 times, and that defense is what really stepped up there at the end. We're going to go ahead and stay over in the AFC West real quick. We're going to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. Prince is no longer the king there in the West. He's currently 0-2 in that division right now. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Lip real quick. What do you think the issue is there?
I'm not sure if there is an issue. It's just that he's been in some tough games. He lost to the Broncos and he lost to the Chargers, and both of those teams are 4-0. Those are some really good teams. As we just talked about, the Broncos were in the Super Bowl, the Chargers were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. These are good teams. They're both 4-0. I think that the Chiefs, if you look at the Chiefs' history, they're going to be in the playoffs. They have a good record every year. They'll figure it out at some point, and they got the second games coming up against the Broncos and the Chargers at some point. So I definitely think that they'll turn around. I think that this could be the division that puts 3 teams in the playoffs. I think that 2 of these teams could lock up both wild card spots, depending on what plays out here. But this division might be one of the toughest, might be the toughest division in NBL. So I think that the Chiefs will be fine.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. I think it's still a little too early on here, but obviously that slow start's definitely going to hurt them down the stretch. But like you said, they're a great team. I think they can definitely come back and possibly get into the playoffs there as well. Next thing we're going to talk about is the Battle of the Undefeateds. We had the Bengals and the Giants recently square off here in Week 4, and that game ended in a shootout. Giants did win that game 40-35. Bomber, why don't you go ahead and touch on that game a little bit?
All right, so New York was 3-0. They went into Cincy. They were 3-0. And who came out the victors? The New York Giants. You want to know why? Because Odell Beckham, baby. This was Odell Beckham versus the $30 million man, Alterin Werner, and he lit him up. Hashtag it. 7 catches, 179 yards. Odell Beckham makes his debut in NBL Season 17. He hadn't broken 100 yards in the prior 2 games, but he comes out this game and really just shreds the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals had good quarterback play by Arul Poe, and they had pretty good running by Jeremy Hill that game. Not his best game, but they were definitely good enough on offense to win this game, but their defense couldn't stop anything. They're looking to sign some veterans in free agency right now, so you can tell it's a real legitimate problem. But when you pay a guy like Alteron Werner last year, who was, I believe, 32 years old, this year he's 30, he was 30 years old, this year he's 31, and the guy's making $18 million this year, and he can't stop any of the premier cornerbacks that you brought him in there to stop. That's a real problem, and that's why the Bengals could not come away with the win at home versus the New York Giants.
Yeah, definitely, and the Bengals have never really had an issue with that offense. They've always been pretty high-powered, but they've always talked about their defense and talked about how much of a struggle it's been for them. And like you said, Werner, they brought him in, paid him a lot of money. They were worried about it at first, didn't know what he was going to produce. Had a decent year last year, but obviously right now he's kind of not fitting the bill there in Cincinnati. Next thing we're going to talk about, Green Bay heats up. Unisolated in the fact that they're currently on a 2-game winning streak. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that over to Lip. Lip, how do you feel about this right now?
Yeah, I think the Packers, in the offseason, everyone was really wondering what was going on with Aaron Rodgers being released into free agency. But I think that the Packers took Brett Hundley with the expectation that he would be able to sit behind Rodgers, learn from him, and then take over whenever this time came. People didn't think that he would be able to perform once Rodgers left. They thought that Rodgers was the reason the Packers had success. But he's playing well, and the Packers are in a stretch right now in which they could definitely win some more games, get themselves in a wild card position. They just came off wins against the Vikings and the Saints. They've got the Bears, the Jaguars, and then a bye week in between all of it. And then they come back again against the Bears, the Vikings, the Titans. And that's a stretch that could really, we talked about them starting to heat up. They could, ignite, light on fire, and rip off a lot of wins right there that could put them in a wild card spot. I don't think they're there to win the division yet. I think Brett Hundley's still going to make some mistakes here and there. I don't think that they're a division winner yet, but right now I think that they have a schedule and a team that can put them in a wild card position.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that as well. I think the one guy you did not touch on is Eddie Lacy. He's kind of having a rebound year. Once again, a little bit early, but he's averaging nearly 6 yards a carry right now. And he did just have nearly a 200-yard rushing game against the Minnesota Vikings a couple weeks ago in that victory. So definitely some good things happening there in Green Bay. So let's see if they can keep that momentum going. Next thing, the topic is Cam He Rebound. He recently was in a game through 5 interceptions against that Denver Broncos defense. I know you touched on it earlier, Bomber. So once again, why don't you kind of talk to us a little bit about that?
Okay, Cam Newton, what happened, baby? Come on, reach out to somebody. Call Trent Redmond. Get him on the phone. You were 136 QBR, 130 QBR, 131 QBR, and then you face a top 5 defense in the NBL, which I consider the number 1 defense in the NBL, and they just shut you down. 11 for 27, 41% completion. You get 0 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, and your team loses 19-7. It was a grinded-out defensive game, and Cam Newton just did not step up. And for a guy that finished runner-up in MVP for the last 2 seasons, you got to expect more. You have to win every possible game you can to beat the Atlanta Falcons for the division. They've won it 5 times in a row. I thought y'all had a chance this year to do it, but losing games in this fashion makes me really doubt the Carolina Panthers' ability to achieve that division crown that they've so been searching for the last couple years. So this was huge, and I think Cam definitely will rebound and bounce back. But losing a game like this, it just really does put it into perspective that, man, even when the Falcons aren't playing their best ball, the Carolina's going to do something to put them right back in it. And I see the Falcons coming away with that division in the end.
Yeah, and I agree with everything you just said. If they want to be able to beat those Falcons and finally take that division, it's going to start with Cam. But I agree. I do think he's going to be able to rebound as well. But I talked about it a little bit before on a team report that I had done. He can't finish in the playoffs, and it seems like anytime he's playing a big-time game, he just can't seem to finish there as well. So I think he'll rebound as well. It's still early on in the season. They still are showing a 3-1 record. So that'll be a kind of a fun thing there to watch in Carolina. Last thing we're going to touch on, NBL Live tonight, guys. We have Washington Redskins at the Dallas Cowboys. Both teams are currently sitting at 1-2. We're going to go ahead and throw this to Bomber first. Why don't you talk about this game a little bit and give us your prediction?
All right, so we got Washington at Dallas on the NBL Network tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You got to tune in. It's going to be a good game, a division rivalry, but I'm going to go ahead and take the road team on this one. I like Gavin Dennis way too much, the 24-year-old stud, the Spartan from Michigan State. He hasn't really played too well this year. He's throwing 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He had a QBR last year of 131. Right now he's around 98. I believe in the law of averages, and I think this game is going to put him right back where he should be. I'm going to say Gavin Dennis gets NBL Live Player of the Game for broadcast number 21, and he's going to help his team get a victory. They're going to win 27-17 over Gibbs. I love Gibbs, man, but this game I just have a feeling is going to the Washington Redskins 27-17 for the road team.
All right, fair enough. Lip, how do you feel about this one?
Well, as Bummer talked about right there, the Washington Redskins are going to have a powerful passing game, but the Dallas Cowboys have the 9th pass defense. They're only allowing about 180 yards a game right now. So I think that defense is going to shut down the pass-happy Redskins. The Redskins are going to have to run if they want to win this game, but I don't think they're going to be able to do that. I think that the Dallas Cowboys defense is going to come up big. I think that the offense is going to play their game. They're going to run the ball. They're going to be safe. And I think Dallas comes away with the win 21-16 over the Redskins.
Yeah, and I like kind of what you touched on there. And personally, and the way I see it, I see the home team winning this game as well. I see the Dallas Cowboys winning 24-20. But I think the one guy that you need to watch is going to be Otha Roseman. He's a big-time receiver that they drafted last season. Really looking forward to him continuing his production that he's had for this team. But I really think that he's going to kind of have his breakout game of the season here on NBL Live against the Washington Redskins. I think he's going to fit the big stage and really do some big things for this team tonight and help them come up with the big-time victory over the Washington Redskins. But I just want to thank everybody for tuning in, listening to the podcast here today. Appreciate everybody, and we will be back here soon.
Wow.